Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel, So Fast I Young. I know it's been a little bit of sporadic videos here and there and a little bit of mixed content. I'm having some issues with the computer and editing my larger videos, so we're going with some short content for a little bit until I get the pieces to hopefully make that run a little bit faster. Anyways, who wants to make a 1920s inspired like cocoon robe with me in a day? This 1 day project, super simple. For this project, I'm going to use a yard of this lovely burnt out velvet back here that I found in clearance. So quite pretty. I'm going to use that. I'm literally going to use the yard straight as it is, and that's really the base of it. And then beyond that, you need if you have more, then you can kind of make a bigger, flowier one, or you can add more detail. But the basic one we're going to do here. I'll show you how to do it. Beyond that, I'm going to use some scrap satin to make basically a collar on the bottom of it. You basically you need enough to go all the way around, sort of. Or, I mean, there's a couple different ways. You can choose to stop it like partway, like you could choose to stop it and make like a really obvious like stop in the front and then just hem the bottom. Or you could choose to go all the way around. I'm gonna probably do a solid like 3-inch border, and then at the very bottom I'm gonna change it into like a swoop. So I'll show you how I pattern that out. This is a big chunk that's been cut into a bunch of times for a bunch of different things. So I would say if you don't mind piecing things, you need about a yard of fabric, maybe even less, to make like strips that you're going to fold over. And it all depends on how wide you want to make that. Like you can have like a 2-inch, you can have like a 1-inch border, you can have a 2-inch border. I'm going to go for a 3-inch border, I think. So I'm going to need strips 6 inches wide so that they fold. This is not on the bias either. It doesn't have to be. You can do it on the bias, I think. I mean, I've done it on the bias, I've done it not on the bias. Usually I do it not on the bias. It also helps conserve some fabrics. Then yeah, because I'm going to add this like swag panel on the bottom. That's going to take a bit more. But I'm just trying to use up random. I'm just trying to use up some random fabric while I am doing this project. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be quick. And hopefully it'll be an easy video for me to edit and put up on my phone, because that's what I got to do right now. So, all right, let's go cut out some things. Okay, so this is really, really simple. This is something that I've done a couple times for shows when we needed to do like a really quick 20s robe. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your yard of fabric and you're going to fold it together like this. You'll pin these inside for real, but right now I'm just showing you. You're going to make a triangle. It's going to look like this. You're going to end up picking a point a little ways out here that is going to be your you want to make a hole basically here that's big enough for your hand to go through. You'll stick your pin in your single outs there. And then look, you've got an arm with an armhole. They're going to add some trim around here. You can add trim here, or you can just bind this off. The nice part about this is all the single out, or the selvage edge, so we're just going to leave that. It's going to disappear into the seam. I might add a binding, I might not, but it ends up looking like a really cute robe. And then you add the border, which gives you a little bit more room. You want to see what it looks like on an actual body instead of just a mannequin. Does actually work quite well as a robe. And for the edge binding that goes around the whole outside, I decided that I wanted it to be 3 inches wide, finished around the neck, and down the sides to just a little bit below the sleeves. And then the very bottom where it comes along the back, I decided that I wanted it to have kind of a wider band. So I made this little pattern. This is on the fold, so this would be folded here. So it's 3 inches here, drops down to 6 here. So the thing about this, and what kind of makes this easy, is you don't have to do this binding on the bias. You can do it on the straight of grain. It actually almost works better on the straight of grain. Why can you do it on the straight of grain? Because your the opening of your robe is also on the straight of grain. So it'll actually work quite well. So this will end up hanging, it'll end up wrapping around like that, and you'll get this like longer drape in the bottom back, and then it'll connect here up to the binding that goes up and around the neck. So I cut these. These are, okay, so this is 2 pieces because I want the curve. So there's going to be a seam here, and I cut this pattern plus 5/8 on top and bottom, and I think I cut an inch extra here just to give myself a little bit of wiggle room. I'm actually going to put this, I'm going to sew this together, and then I'm going to attach, there's 2 of these. One, I'm going to attach one on each side, and then I'm going to attach it to the top and sort of fit it through the center back seam. So there's 2 of these long pieces that I cut a little bit over 36 inches and 7 inches wide. 7 inches wide so that they have at least a 1/2 inch seam allowance on each side to make the binding. I am going to completely enclose this so I don't have to serge or do anything. I want the seam as minimal as possible. You could, if you wanted an even quicker way, you could serge everything, and then you could you could serge this closed, and then you could just stitch it and like press everything. But I want to actually encase it. That's the super quick shooter way, is to literally just serge this thing on in one go, folded. Again, like I said, this particular style robe I've used for a couple of shows where we needed a 20s character to have something a little more flamboyant or interesting, or some sort of jacket. Let's talk for a second about sewing velvet things, because velvet things are evil. There's this thing called velvet creep, where velvet likes to sort of you'll be stitching, and then all of a sudden one of the fabrics will sort of start to slide, and you can't stop it. No matter how many pins you put in, no matter it just happens. I mean, unless you super pin a lot. I usually pin more on velvet than I ever do anything else. There are a couple of ways to stop it. Okay, so I don't have my normal machine. I have my new baby, this vintage one. My normal machine is at the doctor today for a couple of weeks getting fixed up, and I was having some problems with the bobbin, so took her in to get maintenanced. So this one, I have a limited foot selection. I basically have this and a zigzag foot and a ruffler foot and a zipper foot. So now if I had my normal machine, actually, let me see. This is a roller foot. It rolls. And it's plastic, so it doesn't grab a lot. It's not Teflon actually or anything, but it still works pretty well. So the roller would allow the fabric to roll underneath. And my normal machine, I could also turn down the feed, the pressure of the presser foot. I could change the level to lower. And this one does have, I believe in here, so I can change it. So I've got that kind of set low. Having less physical pressure on the velvet will help the creep lessen. This foot works pretty decently if you pin a lot to help the creep lessen. And this is what I used on my Red Riding Hood cloak. But because I was having such problems with it, I never filmed the process of sewing the velvet with this. So yeah, in this case, what I think I'm actually going to do, I've done a couple of tests and pulled out several sets of threads. And oops, see, they're still in there. I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take the time to very quickly hand baste this. That's one of the best ways to stop velvet creep, is to just go ahead and hand baste it. It doesn't need to be a super tiny stitch or anything. Like a good 1/4 inch running stitch will be fine. And I probably might still leave the pins in too on top of that. But honestly, for how quick this project is, taking the time to hand baste this doesn't take that long. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do next, and then I will show you how that turns out. So I'm using a little trick from when I used to cartridge pleat skirts for plays and stuff, where I'm actually leaving this thread on the spool, and I'm slowly working it through. If it starts to get too knotted, then I might cut it off and stop and start a new fresh thread. But I haven't had too much problem with it ever in the past. And basically, I'm just basting in about 5/8 of an inch where my stitch line would be. I want it to be, this is old thread, so it'll break easily. That way I'm also not wasting old thread that is just deteriorated. I mean, this is probably from the 60s or 70s, I'm sure. And then this is, it contrasts so that I can easily see it when I want to take it out. And nice big stitches. Not too big. About 1/4 of an inch, like that one right there might be a little bit big. But for the most part, I'm just going to go around it, and then I'm going to sew it together. Okay, so I have hand basted this in. I realized I forgot to explain how I put this piece on. So I made the bottom of it out of the curved part. Then I took the center of that, lined that up with the center bottom of the velvet, and then just worked my way up until I got to the top, figured out where that needed to be, put a seam there. So this is where, so at the very top, this is the center back of the neck, basically. So I adjusted everything through this seam. So I just pinned it all up, found what that was, unpinned it a little bit, sewed it up, pressed it open, and it's good to go. And that's the easiest way. Because I wanted this silly extra long curve thing, which I'm hoping is going to look awesome once it's on the mannequin. I have a feeling it will. The little test run I just did made it look awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to very still carefully and slowly sew this with the sewing machine. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to be using this one with just the regular straight stitch and straight stitch foot, since I do not have a rolling foot for this machine. I gotta get some more feet for it. So yeah. Okay, so at this point, we have the facing on. I had some problems with it. Wanting to kind of bunch in a few places. Sometimes that happens. Now I'm going to turn this around so you can see. So it's got like the extra long drape in the back. Then we're going to talk about what I'm doing right here. So because this is just basically a giant rectangle, this is one thing that you can do, that I'm going to do to help add some shaping to it, so that this wants to lay more this way. So it basically just adds shaping, and we're going to disguise it. So I'm going to put in these pleats right here in the center back. Then I am been debating on exactly, I need to futz with them just a little bit. They're better, but there's something still. This is where it gets hard, because you really want these to be like on grain pretty well, if possible. Anyways, the plan is to then kind of cover it up with maybe this little piece of lace, which works nicely into the motif of the jacket. Kind of makes it look like it's, an accent point. So this is one of the spots where I had a little bit of trouble, but I decided it was at the very end, and I was like, it's going to be hidden in the back. I was debating if I wanted to attempt to put some sort of binding here too, or not, but I think I'm just going to give them a little hem, tuck them away inside, stitch them down, be done with it. Like I said, I wanted this to be very, very quick and simple. This has only taken me, if you take out my dinner break and my lunch break and the grocery store trip that I have taken, along with a few other little things. I mean, this honestly probably took me about 4 hours to throw together between cutting it all out. And the longest thing was dealing with this, binding, basically. That took me a while because I needed to sew it on. I needed to baste it on my hand, and then getting it all pressed nice and in place afterwards. And it just was witchy fabrics, so but I'm pretty happy with it so far. I got to sew on the applique on the back, and then it'll be done. Okay, so we're going to talk about just the embellishments that I have now added to this. So I ended up deciding to add this little bit of trim to the edge, just to give it some more flair, add some more color to it. I'm working on this in the back. I found these tassels that I had that came from some old upholstery, so I'm going to work that in. And work that one in there. And then I'm also down here. So that it's we're going to add some, exactly 3. And actually there's 2 that are like this, and the one on the center back is slightly different. So those are getting added there to like add to the sort of eccentric flair that I'm trying to go with this. Little things like that. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways, that you can add small details to stuff, like especially when you're doing things for stage or whatnot. And that's like, this is kind of more costumey, less like I'm not going to wear this out. I might try to figure out a Franny Fisher costume, basically, is where this is coming in to play. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it so far. So I just need to lift just the very end of this trim right here and apply this underneath. Hide this a bit so that it looks nicer. And finished robe. What do you think? Do I look like a crazy, eccentric 1920s aunt or psychic? I don't know. A medium. So there's the back view. Front. This was the right color, but I'm not very. I should have either interfaced this satin, I feel like, or used a different one. It doesn't really stand up well. A couple of times when I've done this in the past, when I've made similar things or robes very quick where I just needed straight binding, I've actually used like the satin blanket binding that you can buy in a pack at Joann's. It works great for stuff like that. It's a little floppy up here, but it's all right. This is costume fun. It's going into my random collection of costumey things. So I could put a belt with it, or a big old brooch right here or something if I wanted to close it. It does actually like fit me well enough to do that. I'm really happy with how the back turned out. So I got the back applique on, and I was like, this needs something more. And then I was like, ooh, it needs tassels, because tassels were also like kind of a thing. So I found these in some trim that I had and added them. But yeah. So my one day make the robe, which really ended up taking 2, but not actually hour-wise. Like, if you count it all down, pretty sure it took me about a total of 8 hours to put this thing together from start to finish. I just had things in between that happened. So, probably not even 8 hours, honestly. I don't know. Yeah, I'm very happy with it. Very happy how it turned out. I think it'll be a fun thing to now figure out how to make more of. I think I want to make like some sort of cool hat. Again, I'm thinking like a 1920s medium, very eccentric medium. So I should make a dress for underneath this and some sort of fun hat, and like I don't know, it could be a Halloween costume, or I mean, we are in the 2020s, so who needs to dress like the 20s every day? I should show you guys my other 20s outfits. I'll show you the other robe too that I have that I made at some point that has a binding. It's much prettier than this. Maybe not. I don't know. This is really cool. I do love this. Like, I love the back. I love how this turned out. It's very fun. Very silly. And that's perfectly fine. It's not supposed to be like not going out wearing this necessarily. I don't know. Maybe I might. I feel like the tassels need to be bigger. Like my costume brain wants to like oversize everything on this, like with like some giant feather thing and like bigger tassels, and maybe throw another one down at the bottom and like have it be very, very over the top. There's a character. Is it? You can't take it with you if it has a crazy psychic character. I don't know. I dressed somebody for it. Made a crown hat feather thing. Anyways, now I'm rambling. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in and watching me make a really quick robe. I am so grateful for each and every one of you that watches my videos when I put them out. And I hope that you enjoy my weird silliness in sewing and have learned some things here and there throughout our journeys so far. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you. Alright, here's a peek at another robe that I made. I just thought I'd maybe include this. I might not include this. This right here is a straight binding. It was done, as I said, with blanket binding. Like literally, I just bought a pack of black blanket binding from Joann's, sewed it on the front edge. It does, the collar stands up like it's supposed to. That's why I was saying that the burgundy one wasn't standing up quite like I wanted it to. And this has more body, more presence to it. So that probably is also why this one didn't ripple nearly as much as the burgundy satin did when I put that on. You might see this again. I am considering doing I really want feathers on the ends of these, but I don't want to have to deal with washing that. So I'm thinking about making a video where I quick rake feathers onto this for washing purposes so that I can pull them off. If people think that would be interesting to see how to put feather trim onto snap tape and snap tape onto a garment so that you can put it together and take it apart for laundry purposes, let me know, because it's literally a lifesaver in the costume world. You can make like those pretty widow robes that everybody's wearing with all the marabou feather all over them. I'm like, oh man, those gotta be hard to wash. You either have to take all the marabou off or, just spray the armpits if they get stinky. And, or just wash the armpits, I guess. But what happens if you spill, wine on your Merry Widow robe and you have to wash it and you don't want to deal with all of the feathers? So that's kind of my thoughts here, is I kind of want, to have the option of having, black feather trim here.